All right, and we are live back again. And this is Philo, and with me, as always, is Martin. And we have a very special stream today. And that special stream is because a couple of maybe days back, or probably a week or two back, there was a what do you call the expose is the right word? Maybe not expose, but then uh, something happened that happened in 2019, 2020. Yasir Qadhi gave another statement, and which kind of became scandalous, at least in the Islamic world. And we thought, why don't we do something relating to Yasir Qadhi, right? And so we decided to review one of his videos where he talks about suffering. And so with me is Mahaden to talk about it. Mahaden, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good. I'm just looking forward to the stream. We've never done Yasir Qadhi before, so I'm
Yeah,
happy that
it's surprising that we haven't ever critiqued. But see, the
Mm.
thing is, yeah, I think as much as I have listened to him, I have always seen him talking about like more, not touching upon philosophy, right? But this one thing that you, of course, you found it out, but this is something that touches upon something that we talk about, like philosophy and, problem of evil, suffering, and all those things, right? So kind of interesting. Okay, it's gonna be fun to go through it. Not fun, but at least enlightening, I would say, or you know a learning experience, I would say. So
Yeah,
let's jump into it right away. Add to it. Who's there? Adnan Ali is here. Hi, Adnan. How are you doing? You were there yesterday's stream as well. And if you want to jump in, Martin, I'm thinking let's just making the link live, right?
yeah,
Just
go for
opening
it.
the link for anybody to join, and if they want to join and have a conversation, maybe they could jump in. Our video seems to be short enough for us to find maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes for somebody else to join us and then have a conversation. And can I ask, I think there is already a comment here. uh, if you Hey, I'm using YouTube. If you want, you can jump in the stream and ask the question live. I think there's no, if you feel comfortable with that, you can do that, but you're already saying that I'll ask and come in. So yeah, you can ask and then we'll try to answer it. But if you jump in the stream, that's going to be much better, because then I think we like those conversations, right? The live conversations where you know so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the link public. So what's happening in the world? I wasn't aware that there was a huge earthquake, by the way, a couple
I
of days
wasn't.
away. I was, yeah.
I wasn't. I wasn't aware. It's news to me that you're telling me this.
Madin, I can't hear you properly. Is my voice low or you're speaking low?
I don't
Or
know. Can you hear me now?
now I can hear you better now, much better.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't aware. I wasn't aware there was an earthquake either.
Yeah, there was a huge, I think on Richter it was 8.8 earthquake, somewhere in,
Where?
Russia,
Where?
the
Oh, I see.
eastern Russia.
Okay.
And just occurred to me because we are talking about suffering, right? So,
Right. Well, that would be interesting. Yeah.
and it was, but it didn't cause any, probably it didn't cause much damage, but there were tsunami warnings all across, basically. Even up until, US coast or something like that, San Francisco as well. So yeah, I mean that was big news because usually those tsunamis. I remember those 2010 tsunami uh, of Japan, right? And I think the earthquake was probably on Richter scale 9.5 or something like that. No, pretty crazy, or 9.0, and that caused a huge havoc, right? I mean, you could see those live scenes. Uh,
Yeah.
what do you think on Pascal wager in short? You're saying Pascal wager. Okay, I just wanted to be, funny with the imagining Pascal in a short giving his wager, but Okay. What do you think, Martin? Pascal's wager? I think it's a poor wager. I think, and the reason being, you could have a wager for anything, and because there are two things to it. One is because if God and any God that exists, and if He's all knowing, and if He's all wise, and His wisdom is like knows no bounds, and then He wants you to sincerely love Him, and then you are wagering, then you are trying to fool Him, so He's still going to send you to hell or whatever, the worst place you can imagine. And the second problem I see with this wager is that there could be any number of, I would say infinite number of possibilities of a god being true, not just Islam. I mean, if you're thinking you'll wager for a Islamic god or a Christian god or a Hindu god or a Zoroastrian or Buddhist or whatever. Buddhists don't have gods, by the way, but Zeus or Osiris or Apollo or whoever you may have, right? I mean, there could be millions of gods. These are, I mean, we in our known history of humanity, we know at least 4 to 5 thousand gods that have existed at least, right? There are more probably. I mean, if you go to like civilizations earlier than that, they used to believe in very stupid, dumb things as well. Those were their gods. Who knows? One of those was the real god probably, and that's one of the thing. That's the another thing. And I would say this is just the evidential number of gods that are possible. But logically, if you think about it, I think there are like I mean infinite number of possibilities of any type of god existing with different kind of attributes basically. So how do you wager for that? You just can't. Your probability is still zero. Anything, your Emaan divided by infinity is zero, right? That any number, even if you have a Google numbers above in denominator, in numerator, and in denominator, if you have infinity, your probability of getting that is still zero, right? So that's my answer. Let me ask Madin what he thinks of it, though.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of really. So it's not an argument for the existence of a God; it's argument for the belief in God, or to hold a
Yeah,
belief
totally.
despite
Mhm.
the evidence, let's say. And I don't think um, I don't think that is a great way to do things. And so the argument would be something like the following: on a cost benefit analysis, it's better that you believe and act like you believe in accordance with certain duties, and behaviors that are expected of you, because it's better that if you were wrong in your evidentiary treatment of the matter, then at the very minimum, the worst possible scenario, you're going to go to hell. So it's better that you just believe, because if you are wrong about that, then nothing happens. But if you were right about it, you go to heaven, etc. So that's the calculations. And if you do like a mathematical calculation about it, then it might seem like in your best interest to do something like that, right? Give up some finite time on this life and worship for infinite pleasure. It seems intuitively plausible, but then you have the matter of multiple different types of religions and so on. So the issue is that if you're wrong, well, everybody from each perspective can be wrong, and then so you have a multiplicity of different perspectives, and then if you count them all up, then it's like 10. Let's say there's 10,000 religions or something, or 10,000 different plausible interpretations. Everybody's in that same gambit, right? In that gamble, like 1 in 10,000 chance of being. That's not a way of mathematically figuring it out anyway. Just because the possibilities are 10,000 doesn't mean there's 1 in 10,000 chance. But that's what the Pascal's wager kind of hints at almost. Like if those two choices, and if there's 3 choices, then it's out of one in 3. If it's 4 choices, then it's out of one in 4. But that's not how it works anyway. Even if there's 2 choices, it might be absolutely certain that one is highly unlikely. It's not 1 in 2 chance. And let me give you an example. If there's 2 choices in this situation. There's either $1 million under your bed, or there isn't $1 million under your bed.
Yeah, I
2
mean,
choices.
in mathematical language, that's called the probability distribution.
Yeah, there's 2 possibilities. There's either $1 million under your bed, or there isn't $1 million under your bed. But does that mean then it's just 50-50 chance that you have $1 million under your bed? No, that's wrong. There's two possibilities, but that doesn't mean the chances of there being $1 million under your bed is 50-50. Yeah. So the fact that there's 1 in 10,000 religions doesn't mean the chances of each religion is 1 in 10,000. Of course not. But that's what the wager kind of almost indicates. That's how people in casual language, when they make the wager, either God exists or God doesn't. So isn't it better that you, no, it isn't. So
I mean,
but most sophisticated versions ignore that. The most
Martin,
sophisticated versions.
I do disagree with you on that. By the way, that probability distribution could be different. It could be different, but because there's no information available,
Yeah,
basically,
that's right.
it's
So
fair
it's
enough
like an
to assume that they have equal probability, and they have
yeah,
almost,
yeah.
because there's no other information available about the probability
Mm,
distribution, right? I mean, you can't
yeah.
say that the Christian God's probability is higher because there is more evidence for Christian God. I don't think so that that's the case, and maybe it's more of a, yeah, maybe you'll say there are better arguments in favor of monotheistic God than polytheistic God. Probably yes. Yeah, no, even there I would be a little circumspect, basically,
Yeah, I
in
mean,
terms of
it's a
assigning
form of
probabilities.
yeah, it's a form of epistemic assignment of probabilities when all possibilities are equal, and there's lack of any further information, right? So you just if you have like 10 options and you've got no other information, then but it's
You assign
very
the equal probability. Yeah,
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 you may assign an equal probability. No, that I'm saying that is that's a theory that you can take, and I'm attacking the theory itself. Like in the event, right? In the event where there's completely blank information, you may be forced to do that, right? And my point is Pascal is presupposing that you're in the situation where you're in that blank state of affairs, but you're not. Nobody is forced to be in that state of affairs, right? Because I don't think it's equal, and if I don't think it's equal, then I can assign different probabilities, right? If you're in a blank slate, that under that framework, you might derive a different result. But the wager is it's supposed to be informing and engaging with atheists, and depending on where you stand on the probability assignment, how you assign the probabilities to each religion, it will change, and that's the point that I'm trying to make. So just merely because there's two possibilities doesn't mean there's 50-50 chance. And but Pascal, following that principle that I've laid down there, just because there's a possibility doesn't mean probability. Call it the possibility doesn't mean probability principle. Following that, I won't accept the wager. Just in the same way, I won't accept some random person coming up to me and saying the following, right? There is a give me your money or you will turn into a chameleon. Now, there's two possibilities. Either you turn into a chameleon or you don't, right? Am I going to really think there's two possibilities? And sorry, am I really going to think that there's a 50-50 chance there? No, because the particular atheist in this situation doesn't believe that there's a strong probability of me turning into a chameleon. But according to Pascal's wager, I should just be in that state of mind, right? Of it's all equal. And therefore,
yeah, yeah.
but
I see your point. I think,
yeah,
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 that's pretty obvious
mm,
point, right?
yeah.
Or Rishi has joined us, Madan. Hello,
Okay.
Rishi. How are you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good, good. You joined earlier as well, right? I think
Yeah,
probably
I did.
3 weeks
I think
back or so.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, go ahead. What do you have? What do you want to ask?
Oh, so the topic is if God exists, why there is suffering in the world. That's what the topic is.
Yeah, I think we wanted to. You can go ahead and ask your question, but we wanted to review a video by a Mufti, basically, right? Yasir Qadhi. You can see that there
Oh,
his name is there in the title
yeah.
as well.
I have heard about. I have never. I have read his name somewhere. I never heard any of his videos, but I did. Yasir Qadhi. Does he live in America?
Yes, he's American scholar who studied in Medina.
Yeah.
Very, yeah, and I think he's a Yale graduate or something like that. And he's studied from, he's academically pretty serious scholar, by the way. Yeah, he's well
Because
known
the
and
logic.
renowned.
Yes, I know the logic which these people give is that the world is a test. That's what they say. The world is a test, and somebody is given a harder test. Somebody is given an easier test, but life is a test for everybody. But
Yeah,
on this
that
point,
yeah, totally.
I would,
Rishi, by the way,
so I,
before you continue, what's your background? Are you a Muslim or?
no, I'm a Hindu,
Okay.
but
So
like a very
do you think do you
liberal,
think the same for
secular
suffering as
Hindu.
well?
No, like a very liberal, secular Hindu. Yeah.
No, no. My question is, do you think the same for suffering as well? Why?
No,
You
no,
believe in
I
a
don't.
God, right? You do believe in a God.
Yes, it's complicated. I'll come to that later. So, like these people say that life is a test. So, what about animals? Because they also suffer, but so they give the test, but they don't get any results. So, all this premise is refuted by this logic.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the very strong points against the existence of a God who, who's probably not malevolent, who's benevolent. Because their theology says that the God is all benevolent, right? So then when you pose the question, why is then there suffering, right, in the world? And then you say, no, no, this suffering is for test, it's a soul making theodicy or some other theodicy or whatever you may have, right? And then the question arises, why is then there, if there is soul making for humans, is there soul making for animals as well? And if they say yes, then you have to ask them the evidence as to where is it mentioned that they'll get the reward for soul making, because in Islamic theology at least, animals don't get to heaven. They are here
No, they
as
don't.
part of,
Yeah,
yeah.
they don't
And
get
in
to
even
heaven or
Christian,
hell.
yeah, in even in Christian understanding, animals are just part of this world, but they won't get to heaven. So then that makes sense to ask them, then why are they suffering? Even when somebody might answer you that, okay, when you see a dog or a cat suffering or any animal suffering, you see that it evokes emotions, it builds your soul and stuff like that. Then the next line of question is, then why is there suffering in the wild where nobody can see, but still a zebra who's not a zebra, but maybe a bison who's in Indonesian island is being bitten by a Komodo dragon and suffers for months before dying, painful, slow death. Why is there that suffering, right?
Like all
So
animals
that's
suffer, and they suffer more
then
than
so
human beings.
so this the problem of evil or problem of suffering basically then becomes really powerful in favor of, I think, atheists. Basically, I think,
Yeah,
in
that's
my opinion, and
injustice.
probably Madan will agree with me, maybe, that problem of evil or problem of suffering, however you wanna call it, is probably one of the strongest arguments that atheists have.
Like Abrahamic faiths, can never address these issues.
I think any faith, even Hinduism has the same, I guess, problem, right?
But but even because we don't have that trust concept. But even if you go by that
I
concept,
mean, see, it's still a
Hindu
jalebi. A
Hinduism is
jalebi is
much
jalebi,
better,
right?
much better. Much better
So,
because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
we have
I
the
see.
concept of afterlife for animals.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I agree. I mean, you can say my jalebi is slightly straighter than your jalebi, right? Perfectly fine. Martin,
yes.
what do you want to say? Do you want to add something to it?
No, I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. I was just listening.
No, no. I was trying to get you into the conversation.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, which, um, uh, so exactly what point were you saying? Sorry, there was a bit of a disturbance. I just heard the jalebi bit.
No, no, no. Did you hear the suffering point that I was making, right? That
Say
the
it again.
strongest
Yeah.
arguments that against theism is problem of evil, at least in my opinion, problem of suffering or problem of evil. Basically, it's the strongest argument that I think atheists have. Is
So
their trump
Philo,
card problem?
you are an atheist.
Yes, I mean I say atheist, but I'm more of an agnostic. I
Okay,
won't say
so
I can
that
100% convince that there's no God, right? But
yes,
for
so
you know,
you are
if
not
you
an
ask me,
atheist.
I'm an atheist in terms of Islamic religion, for Christian religion, for
Yes, of
Hinduism,
course you are.
or in those aspects, I would say I'm an atheist.
But
For
still, you don't
these
deny
first
God.
major religions, probably I can pretty safely say that I'm more of an atheist rather than. But there could be some airy
Then
fairy kind of a god who might exist, maybe
what
William
about
Paley's
Buddhism?
kind of.
What about Buddhism?
Buddhism. I don't think Buddhism has a god concept of god.
Yes, so it's an agnostic religion,
Yeah,
honestly
it's a
speaking.
it's a religion. It's probably more of a way of life, I guess, right? So I
Yes,
don't
but
have
it's an
any.
agnostic religion
I
because
don't
when
follow
Buddha
it. I
was,
mean, I don't follow it. I wouldn't follow it. Maybe I would probably maybe say that there are some better things in Buddhism than probably some other religions. Maybe not. I need to read
because
up
when Buddha
on
was
that.
asked about God, he was silent. He didn't say there is God, and he didn't deny the existence of God, and he didn't affirm the
Yeah.
existence
So
of God.
basically, he didn't give any information. No knowledge
No,
transferred. Yeah.
no, because he said it's irrelevant, talking about God and those things.
Yeah. That's what I'm doing basically. So yeah. I mean, I don't know.
You can go ahead and review that video. Yeah, that's all from my side.
Okay. But you want to tell us what you think of suffering. Basically, what is your how would you counter it? Basically, I mean, you're not an atheist, right?
Yeah, because we say like happiness and suffering, they are just two sides of the same coin. So there is no importance of happiness without suffering, and vice versa. So that's what we believe. That if negative exists, positive would exist, and if there is life, then there is death, and if there is suffering, there is happiness.
Okay, and then you say you are saying that God couldn't have created a world where there was no or less suffering, maybe.
No,
No,
like less suffering or more suffering. It's like subjective. So what appears
you
more
you
like
you you less suffering as in less gratuitous suffering, right? Like I was telling about this. A foal, right? A foal is going in the jungle. A tree falls on that foal, and it's stuck in that under that tree, and it slowly dies, right? In quite a few days, right? Probably weeks, right? For no reason. Do you think that foal is suffering or not suffering?
he is suffering?
Okay. Do you think there is happiness counter to that suffering?
No. What I was telling you is that there is
But you
happiness
you
in
were
this
talking
world.
from a human's perspective, and that's why religions are made, right? From human perspective, right?
So of course, religions are for human beings. So for whom
Right,
else
Do
it is
right.
you think do
religion?
you think do you think suffering is subjective? What do you mean by that? Can you just clarify?
That, yes, indeed, suffering is subjective because what is suffering for you might be happiness for somebody else.
Right, but
You see that?
the suffering itself is a fact about the world, right?
It's a definitional thing, right?
Right.
I mean, if you were say suffering I mean, you are talking about two different things, right?
My point was there is happiness in this world, correct?
Yeah, that is.
There is
So what you mean is that two different people, two different agents can interpret, not even interpret, can feel
experience,
different about two different
experience.
things. But the point is, suffering
Yeah.
exists or happiness exists in the world. Despite that, we're not talking about the
Ye-
particulars of what those things are. So, for example, I might suffer by having chili, right? And you might have chili and you may enjoy it. But the point is,
Yes.
happiness is an objective fact in the sense that it exists in the world, right? There are people with there are agents with brains or nervous systems, central nervous systems, and they tend to have qualities such as pain and non-pain, right? And pain or elation or happiness. That's it. That's not that part is not subjective, unless you all you mean is that it's in the in the mind of the person. Well, but the person is in the world, so it's still an objective fact of the world that pain exists, or suffering exists, and similarly, happiness exists.
Yeah, so I agree with that.
Yeah. So when it comes to the problem of evil, I think the problem of evil is the following. So if you have a god or a creature or a being who is all knowing, all wise, and all powerful and all moral, right? It's hard to reconcile suffering when his attributes are such that he wouldn't do all that suffering. So how would you square that circle?
But I would say that then happiness would have no meaning if there is no suffering.
So you think happiness won't have meaning without suffering?
So good and evil, happiness and suffering, they exist. They're like complementary to each other.
Right. So suffering is necessary in order to go for another outcome, like another consequence. Like without that sort of harm, you won't have any meaning.
Yes, happiness won't have any meaning. Yes.
Right. So how would you explain the idea that you can have like heaven where there is no suffering, or a world where there is no suffering? Because I can imagine lots of worlds where there is no suffering.
No, we don't have that concept, because that's the difference. We don't have that concept that heaven is all happiness.
No, but
like
you
that.
still have a concept of leaving this world, so you want to get away from suffering, right? I mean, you have a concept of nirvana, right?
Yes. So that is actually
Right.
going beyond both happiness and suffering. Because
Yeah,
we
but
say that
then,
they both
but
are
then,
shackles. Even
but
happiness
then,
is a shackle, and so is the suffering.
yes, but then, in what sense is nirvana better than happiness?
Because happiness is mental, it's a mental state, and so is the suffering.
But why
And
would you want to
nirvana is
avoid?
like
Because
beyond the mind.
happiness, you say, is a good thing, right?
Because happiness would
And suffering
inevitably
is a
lead to
requirement
suffering.
for it, right?
Yeah.
So
So
Because
let me
happiness,
just
yes.
your theology fails here, right? You understand that?
No. Sooner than later, happiness would lead to suffering, and suffering then would lead to
No,
happiness,
but then you
and it's
said
an
happiness is a good thing,
infinite
right?
cycle.
You
Infinite
said
cycle. It's
happiness
an
is a good thing,
infinite
right?
cycle.
And you
Yeah,
can't
good
have
thing,
good
but not
without
the
the bad, right?
yes,
You
but
you
not the
see you
supreme
see
thing.
the absurdity there? No,
No,
because
I don't.
you want to leave it as well. No, it's not the absurdity of your point alone with just them existing. You can square that with uh, that statement of yours that you gave. But then to leave that and to go to the next higher state, you're saying you are going to leave happiness, which requires suffering as a complement to enhance to give you the good feeling of happiness, but then you want to leave it for something else, right? So why that? So
Because that is not the
nirvana is
supreme.
better than
Yes.
happiness, right? Why is it
Okay,
better? I'm
so
asking you.
let me just say that we don't have to be restricted to the Hindu view, any particular religion's view. When I say something like, I can imagine
No, I
a
want to
world where,
critique that
yeah,
his view, basically, right?
yeah, you're critiquing, but you don't have to be. I'm just saying we can imagine a
Yeah, yeah.
world where the idea that happiness is contingent upon suffering, or contentment is contingent upon suffering. I don't think there's any basis for that just as a philosophical thing, right? What you might mean is, for example, let's flesh it out a little bit. Let's say, in order to appreciate food, we may need to go hungry, right? But that is a very particular type of thing. If you were never getting hungry in the first place, you don't need to appreciate food, right? So there's
Exactly.
a
That's the second line of argument.
so
That's a higher level.
it's all just very, yeah. So the point is, the human organisms don't have to be designed in this particular way, where your happiness is dependent upon the suffering in order to obtain it. I don't see any philosophical issue with just being not in pain. You don't even have to be happy. You just not be so let's talk about, we're talking about the extent of suffering. The gratuitous, horrendous, horrible starvation, and you're saying all of that is necessary just for a little uplift in happiness. And I see that to be highly implausible, because you can just I'm not sure how you can substantiate that. You've got just as much evidence to substantiate that as any other person who may just say, I don't think so, because I can imagine a world where none of those contingencies are there. right? Where in order, for example, in order to bring bravery, you need to have tornadoes, let's say, so that people can become brave and then feel good about it or something. But these things are all contingent upon these particular things that didn't have to be designed this way. Bravery is good simply because we have the problem in the first place. But if the problem didn't exist in the first place, we don't need bravery, right? So we're talking about, in a very abstract sense, if a being could have created a world, he didn't have to create it in these sort of contingencies. You can just have a world with less pain. Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I agree with you. That's the second line of attack as to why is suffering needed? Why would you have why can't you have grades of happiness instead of a complementary opposite of happiness, right? I mean, any god, even if it happens to be a Hindu god,
for
is
example, imagine this,
well
Rishi,
capable
imagine
of.
this world. Imagine this world where there is some suffering, there is some happiness as well, but there is no rape, there's no torture, there's no genocide, there's no mass murder, right? Imagine in a world, and it may seem very boring to you, but imagine a world where people are 24/7 in the gym, and there is some pain, right? And without the athleticism and the hurdles to overcome, they're not going to feel the elation of success in the gym, right? So those who don't work out, those who don't put the hard work in, grit in, they may feel lower levels of happiness, right? And those who do work out and they feel some pain doing so, but eventually reach a higher peak of happiness. Now I've described to you a perfectly self-consistent world where there's no rape in there, there's no murder in there, there's no horrendous tornadoes, stuff like that, and it's closer to an improvement to the world of right now.
That
You may
exists
think now,
right now.
it sounds very boring, right? But keep in mind, this is all organism specific. If we just accepted this type of world, if we were in this world, our brains were designed to enjoy this world, we would just accept it as a world, because to aliens, our world might be very boring, right? We just work hard, make money, drink champagne or whatever. What's that? To a higher intelligence, that would just be boredom. So all of this is very, what my point is, I can imagine worlds that are higher on the peak of
happiness, but then
happiness and lower levels of suffering, closer to something what God could have made. And the fact that I can think of some of these worlds, and this world is not one of them, shows me that there's reasons to doubt that sort of God exists or a creature exists. Yeah.
Rishi.
Okay, so yeah, I heard his point.
Okay. Do you have any comments? Or then if not, then we'll go on and we'll review.
But all he said is that less suffering. So that's all
No,
I can.
I even said that you can imagine a world where there is no suffering. You can imagine a world where there's just grades of happiness. There's somebody goes to the gym, they don't feel any pain, but then those who do 6 hours of gym daily feel happier than those who only do 1 hour of gym or no gym at all, right?
Yeah. So no
And
pains,
then
no
there's no
gains.
pain. There's no pain. I mean, I can imagine a pretty world like that, and there's no pain involved. There's no
But no pain, no
rape. There's no
gain.
suffering. No, that's what you think because you live in this world, right? And
Yeah,
I'm giving you,
but that's
I'm
utopia.
producing.
What you are talking is utopia. That's never going to happen. It was never
No,
in the past, and
that's you're
that's never
saying
We're
that's
going to
not
never
happen.
saying
gonna
utopia can
happen.
happen. We're saying, is it compatible with a being who can make it
Yeah,
happen?
yeah,
Right?
we're
Not,
talking in hypotheticals, right?
yeah. No, is it compatible with a being that
Yeah,
can make it happen?
yeah.
Right? We're not talking about us making it happen. Well, you don't know if we can make it happen or not, but we're not in the future yet. But let's hypothetically concede that humans can't make that happen. But it's not a question for humans. It's a question for a supremely intelligent, perfect being,
yes,
supremely benevolent, etc.
because then you go in the theory of karma, and then it comes good karma and bad karma, and then whatever happens is for good. Nothing is random. So everything has a lesson. Like suffering has a lesson, happiness has a lesson, and everything is for the spiritual upliftment.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying this from your worldview. It's a better thing to have, or I don't understand your argument. What you are
What
talking
both
about.
like suffering, it teaches you a lesson. Happiness, it teaches you a lesson. So nothing is random,
Suffering teaches you a lesson. I think, why do you need a lesson?
Remember, Rishi, you have to look at it from the perspective that if I said to you that your mother was, let's say you were children, and let's say your mother was, and I don't mean this to be personally offensive or anything, it's not really, it's hypothetical, right? Let's say your mother was a really, 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 really great person. She kept saying that she was a great person, and we assumed that she was a great person and everything else. But yeah, and let's say she lets you cut your arm off, right, to teach you a lesson not to cut your arm off, right? That sounds a bit weird, right? And if especially if your mother was really powerful and equipped to not let that happen. So if your mother is a competent individual and she's morally good, right, type of person, then she won't let you cut your arm off to teach you a lesson not to cut your arm off, so that you understand the pain. Maybe she'll let you trip a bit, but not let you cut your arm off. Okay, see, it's a bit more nuanced. You're just accepting every single
Yes,
suffering as a lesson, when in reality there's some really, really terrible things that happen in the world that doesn't have to be that lesson.
okay, so let's take the most terrible thing, which happened
Mhm.
in the recent times, the Second World War.
Well, let me just put it in the context of that mother
So
thing before
the
you
Second World
continue.
War,
So,
let me complete this, please.
I know, but I was in the process of making a point to you, right? I was in the process of making the mother point. Now imagine that your mother could avoid teaching you that lesson to get you where you want to be. For example, if your mother was genuinely a good person, she would rid the world of those problems in the first place, right? She would rid the world of those problems in the first place, so you don't have to learn a lesson to avoid it. The world would not have those problems in the first place, right? So if your mother's imperfect and not very good, or as we humans are, then it makes sense that you may let your child fall, you may let that happen, right? But it doesn't make sense in the context if your mother was really perfect and was in control of all these other stuff in the world. In that scenario, you won't allow your child to fall into a dip. You won't allow your child to cut his arm off or let a fire happen. You won't even allow fire to exist. And that's what I'm trying to say. So if you take now that you've introduced a world war example, you have to think about it like that and apply that, to the world war example, right? Whatever that's trying to avoid, whatever lesson it's trying to raise, that could have been avoided by a supremely powerful being. Especially if the point that you were going to make is that it's so that we don't commit wars. If wars were not possible in the first place, then you don't need to teach somebody to avoid wars.
But that's not how life works. So
Yeah, that's not how this life works. I agree with you, but
you are living in a utopia.
I'm not living in a utopia, because we're saying, do you not understand the problem of evil? The problem of evil is saying,
I think
why is
you're conflating two
I,
things. We
I
are
do.
giving you examples of how this world could be, that could be made better, right, without suffering. Given a concept of a God that you believe, or given a concept of a God that Abrahamic faith people believe, we are giving an argument why it doesn't fit in the current world, because and the arguments given against the problem of evil, right, or the theodicies, right, by you or by them, right. So that's the simple challenge
It
we are
does.
putting
So
in front of you, and you are
yes,
saying
yes.
we don't live in a utopia, and that's nowhere
Okay,
close to you understanding us.
so let me put that example of the World War. Okay, the Second World War, that was the biggest tragedy.
But
That was
first
the
thing first, did
biggest.
you understand the
Yeah, I did.
explanation
I did.
I or
I did.
Madan
I did.
gave you, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay. Okay.
please let
Okay.
me complete it.
Sure.
So
Sure.
that
Go ahead.
was the biggest tragedy. Okay, the Second World War.
Hmm.
But see the consequences. See the results. It led to the creation of United Nations. It led to the creation of World Bank. So many global institutions. Even the nation of Israel. If the Second World War didn't happen, the nation of Israel would not have been there. So, in a way, Jews should be grateful for the Second World War. Also, if we see, it led to like almost the diminishing of racism in the world, anti-Semitic beliefs. It led to like it's almost a crime in Europe now to be an anti-Semitic. So you can see so many positives coming out from the
I
Second World
think
War
you
itself.
said you understood what we said, and then you just post something that
No, your
showed that.
whole point is no. I understand. Your whole point is why would a perfect God create an imperfect world? That's what your
That's
whole
right.
point
That's
is.
right. Yes. You need to. So this is an analytical argument. It's not an emotional argument. So you're making it out. It's not about gratefulness or ungratefulness, right? It's whether I could feel as a naturalist, as somebody who doesn't believe in God, you could potentially feel grateful for bad events happening. It has nothing to do with your psychological appreciation of a bad event. Like for example, the other day maybe I had a problem with my car, and I learned something from it, right? But I don't believe
That's
in God.
that's it.
But listen to me. No, listen to me, please. Um, um, so I learned something from it. I felt grateful about it, but at the same time, right? If it's an analytical argument. It's a completely separate domain of thinking, right? It's saying the following: if there is a 10 foot a 10 foot statue in this room, I would be able to see it, right? If there was a person who loves to bake cakes, he loves to bake cakes 7 days a week, right? And if I see a kitchen empty without any cakes, that's a good reason to think a person who bakes cakes doesn't exist. Similarly, if there's a 7 foot statue in my room right now, made out of solid metal or whatever you want to call it, it would be visible, right? The fact that it's not there is not therefore that means that's good reason to
It
think, yeah,
doesn't exist,
yeah,
right?
right.
And that's the argument for this God, basically.
Yes,
Any
and you see, there's nothing
flavor
to
of
do
this
with
God.
gratefulness or happiness. The same
Yeah,
person is
it's an
making this.
analytical argument. It's
It's an
a
analytical
sheer
argument, right?
analytical
So
argument.
it's nothing to do with me. I can actually find it grateful that because of the UN, because of certain events happened, at least I can get something good out of it. Let's say I learned something about my car, or from the World War, at least some things came out of it. But the point is, as an analytical argument from the perspective of if there was a God, I don't expect this to happen. Those are two different things.
But okay, now you guys can review that video, and I would like to say one
I
thing.
think you come
Uh,
back to go back and listen to this argument. This I don't mean to denigrate you in
I
any
did hear.
sense. By the
I
way,
did hear
but
the whole
yeah, yeah,
point.
but
The whole point
yeah,
is why would an imperfect God? Why would a perfect God create an imperfect world? That's what the whole point is.
yeah.
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
That God doesn't even have to be perfect. Basically, certain qualities. Perfect God has a very different definition than a God that is benevolent, right? So it's talking about benevolence, right? When you say
Yes.
it could be an evil god, and then I'll take your bet for that, right? Yes, maybe then we can expect this to happen, right?
Right now, you guys can review
But
that
then
video.
again, there are problems
Let me ask
against
you a
it as
question,
well, and
Rishi.
we
Let me
we are not
ask
going
you
to
a
get
question.
into it. But then,
Let
anyways,
me
yeah,
ask you a
yeah.
question, Rishi. Right now in
Sure.
Sweden, let's just think of Sweden as a concept, as a self-enclosed community, right? There's high levels of education, low levels of crime, strong levels of neighborhood behavior, neighborly behavior, high levels of self-reported happiness, and low levels of stress. Many humanitarian indexes and scores indicate it's a very good kind of country. Now, let's say you were a supremely powerful person. Let's say it's your personality. It's you, but you have a magic wand, and let's say you're a very good person, extremely good person. Now, would you create the rest of the world with the same characteristics of Sweden, or would you create a world where it's the characteristics of, let's say, think of a really bad place right now. I don't know, area in Brazil or Somalia, or I don't know. Where there's lots of crime, lots of rape, what sort of world would you create?
But we say the world we create depends on our karma, what we did previously.
No,
No, no, no. This is a hypothetical question. Basically, what would you
So,
create?
so I can
You
give
as a
a
you
hypothetical.
as a person.
Yeah. So I'm
If you
giving
were,
you
let's
my
say, if you
answer.
were all wise, you had all the powers to create something like either a Sweden, maybe something like Japan or Sweden, some Scandinavian country where there is very low crime rate and everything, or Somalia or Nigeria where is like huge strife is going on, crime is rampant,
But we say God is not responsible for all this.
Okay, let's say there is suffering.
We are
Maybe.
responsible.
Okay, yeah,
We are
okay. Let's let's
responsible.
let's let's let let's make it even.
so wait, Rishi, 1 minute. Rishi, you, even though you had a wand, forget God, forget God. I'm talking about you. Ignore everything that you know about God and karma. You have a wand in your hand, and you have one wish to do something about this. Would you would you create the poverty of a world of poverty in Africa, or would you choose the rest of the world, every single continent in this world, to have the same statistical demographics and characteristics of Sweden? If you could change
Okay.
Africa right now, right, would you
No,
do
no.
it?
Okay.
What's
So
the point? It doesn't
okay.
matter who's at
What?
fault.
Wait.
It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter who's at fault. If you're a good person, would you use that wish, that one wish, Aladdin's wish, to just evaporate away the suffering in Africa right now, the suffering in Palestine right now, or something like that, and just turn it into peace? Would you not do that? Why would the
Okay. So
question of
like.
who's responsible come into it?
Yeah, there shouldn't be a question at all, right?
Yeah.
Even you don't have to even go to somebody else. You come to your house, you have 5 children, 7 children. They're all fighting among each other. They're whatever, maiming each other or whatever. Would you want a house where there is a fight between each of your children, or they're in strife amongst? Maybe there is some greater reason you think, or would you want peace, basically, right? And this is a very smaller version of it, and just trying to convey the same point, basically. What would you want to have? What would you do, right, in this situation? And this is more of that question. This will reflect your character, right, eventually, right? If you think you are a good person, right, and if you claim to be a good person, right, I'm good, I'm all benevolent, I'm peace loving and all those things, then probably I think 100 out of 100 people will say yes, I would want every country to become as prosperous as Sweden,
Definitely.
or yeah.
Wait. Yeah. So let me continue that line of thought. Every dad wants peace in his house, but it all depends on the kids. So this answers your question.
It's not talking about kids, right?
No, no. Of course,
It's
no. It
about
is about kids.
it's talking
No,
about
it
what would you
is
want
about kids.
if you had
Every
if you
dad.
had all
No,
the
no.
power. If you had all the
Every
power,
father. No.
if you
Every
had
father
all the
wants
power,
peace.
if
It
you had a
depends
magic
on the
wand, I
kids.
think Mahadin used that. Probably you skipped and listening to that
No,
part.
no,
If you
no.
had a magic
I did.
wand,
You
how do
guys
you
are
pronounce it,
all talking
Mahadin?
hypothetically.
It's
It's all
a wand or
hypothetical. No.
wand. How do you
Yeah, but
pronounce it?
Rishi, it has to be hypothetical because we're talking about from the perspective of God. We're talking about magic
So
powers. Why would you?
no,
Why would you?
no,
Why would you reduce God's abilities to human abilities and go? Oh, we can't have a utopia. I agree. We can't have a utopia. God can. That's the whole point. If
no,
you are supremely powerful like God and you had the utopian ability, so ability to use a magic wand so that you can turn the
no.
poverty of Africa into
For,
the successes of Sweden.
no. First
Okay,
of all,
let
God
me
has
let
no
me.
magic
I think
wand.
Madan, we should finish our conversation with Rishi and get back
God
to
has
the
no
video.
magic wand.
Do you
God
think
has no
God
magic
has? Do you think God? No, no. I think I'm understanding Rishi now better, right? I think he thinks that God is not all powerful. Do you think God is all powerful, Rishi?
All powerful. Like the universe is based on certain laws, and it's gonna work on that. God cannot change those laws.
So God is not all powerful, right?
Yeah, you can say in a sense, yes.
Okay.
So God had no choice but to create this universe.
Yeah. I think case is different, right? Because his epistemology is pretty different,
Yeah, but
right?
if your so Rishi, if your case is different, then why would you spend 15 minutes with us when we are definitionally describing this God who's omnipotent, omnibenevolent, all powerful? We said perfect, and then you're saying not telling us that you actually don't believe in that particular type of God, but still then
No,
engage with it
no,
as though it's the type of God that you believe in. When we're not talking about that type of God.
perfect in a sense, like God's planning is perfect, and whatever happens has meaning. That's what I mean to say.
So
But
what
the
do you mean
universe,
by God's planning is perfect? I think we
the
need to spend
universe.
we need to spend on it a little bit more time some other
Yes,
time,
so
right?
yes, so because we are going into very
Because
deep,
I think your Madan, there is a feedback from your side, right? Yeah, I think your epistemology has some holes in it.
is
When
different. Yes,
will will
yeah,
pry them
we are
apart.
going into deep, Hindu philosophical thoughts. So we're gonna discuss it someday later. So you are here every Sunday, I believe, or which day?
Oh, yeah, we are not regular on these streams because whenever we get chance, we find time, then we do it. Otherwise, then we are not regular. But yeah, we do mostly. If we do any stream, mostly it's on either Saturday or Sundays. Yesterday we had our Hindi Urdu stream, and today we are having an English
Okay,
stream.
so that's
Madan can't participate in Hindi Urdu streams, so but our channel mostly deals with philosophical arguments, and especially the
yes,
English streams. Hindi Urdu
yes.
streams, we touch upon a little bit of scriptural part as well, mostly Quran and
Oh, okay.
Hadith, but then Hindi Urdu, I mean English, we just purely go on. I mean, we do still touch Islamic apologists and review those things, but then
Because
there's like more of
I would, yes. So I would
philosophical.
like to wrap up. I would like to wrap up, and I would like to say is that like in Hinduism there is a concept called Rit, and Rit means the laws of the universe, and they are like eternal, so they are never going to change, and God cannot change those laws.
Yeah, so there is something above and beyond God, right? So God, why call him God? I mean, it's a lesser God, right?
I think
It's all
Yeah, but
semantics.
we will we'll tease it apart later on.
yeah, I think we should
Yeah,
do that later.
Yeah, we'll
we'll
tease it
talk it
apart
someday
later on.
later.
But I think Rishi, you should have mentioned this 20 minutes ago instead of talking about the Abrahamic concept of God.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, no
Yeah,
worries.
I thought Philo already knows my worldview, so I don't know. Maybe.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Yeah. Okay, cool. Talk to you later then. Okay, bye. All right, let's get on to this.
If God is all loving, if God is all powerful, then how does one explain the existence of evil? I mean, why would there be natural disasters? Why would there be calamities? Why would there be war? Why would there be plagues? This is a question that has plagued mankind since the very beginning of human history. I mean, the earliest ancient Greek philosophers have written about this throughout centuries. Jewish philosophers, Christian philosophers, Muslim philosophers, and theologians, they've all grappled with the same problem. This is not a new question. It's an age-old question, but it comes up over and over and over again. And so much has been written, so much ink has been spilled, so many volumes have been written. I mean, obviously, I can't answer this question thoroughly in a few-minute video. In fact, even in a detailed class. Nonetheless, Muslims should know what is the Islamic response to this question. And there are a number of responses that our theologians have given. And of course, we'll talk a lot about this a lot more in my upcoming class. But in a nutshell, we believe that there is no such thing as pure evil. As Muslims, we believe there is no such thing as pure harm. Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created is either purely good or it has some good and some evil in it. And whatever Allah wills, the good will eventually outweigh. There's going to be benefit in that harm. And a simple example of this is, how are you going to be kind when there's nobody to show kindness to? How are you going to be generous when there's nobody to be generous upon? We also believe that one of the problems that people have when they look at quote unquote evil is that they neglect that they're not taking into account the hereafter. That if you were to weigh the harm in this world or the pain in this world with the blessings of the hereafter, our Prophet ﷺ very explicitly said that the one who's patient when a calamity happens to him and he sees the reward in the day of judgment, in fact, he will wish that a bigger calamity happened to him in this world. So the good that will come from the patience, from believing in Allah, from turning to Allah, and the reward that Allah Himself will give far outweighs the pain that will happen in this world. As well, there's one fundamental difference when people compare what Allah is doing to what a person does. For example, one of these new atheist philosophers says that a God who causes tsunami waves and kills 1,000 or 1,000,000 people or so many people. Imagine if a man did this, how evil would this man be? Well, then they extrapolate that and they say, therefore, astaghfirullah, they say God's actions are also evil if there is a God. The point is there is no God because of evil. That's their perspective. And the response to this is very simple. You cannot equate Allah with a man, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator, and the creator has the right to do what me and you don't have the right to do. The one who created us out of nothing, the one who owns and controls us, he has rights and privileges that no other human being can possibly have. And that is the fundamental difference. You cannot make an analogy between God and man, because Allah is the creator, and the creator has the right and the privilege and the laws that his creation does not have. And that is one of the fundamental differences. Allah says in the Quran, لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. No one has the right to challenge Allah in what he does, whereas Allah will ask us what we have done. And there are many, many other responses we're going to give, inshallah ta'ala, in my upcoming class, no doubt. I hope to see all of you there. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
All right. I think we already talked about a large part of it, anyways, right? I think it's I think we did go through it. There are theodicies, right? You can say, there are goods to some sufferings, basically, right? But this is not pretty clear. This is not as clear to me, right? I mean, how would a God, and this is probably more from an emotional perspective rather than a logical perspective. Let's say a 5-year-old baby has been raped, right? What good is she gonna gain against that suffering? I mean, it's not very clear cut to me, right? I mean, maybe you would say she will go to heaven, okay, only if she happens to be a Muslim. Let's say if she's any other, she has any other faith other than Muslim faith, then she won't go. Maybe if she dies under a certain age, before the age of reason or age of maturity, right? Balugut, right? So it's a very restricted case. What if she's above that? She gets raped. What does she gain? Is that a soul building theodicy, or is that a gain in hereafter? I don't see. I mean, even with humans, that argument doesn't seem to be working. For tsunamis and stuff, yes. I mean, I think his response seemed pretty shallow to me, Yasir's, right? He says, God has created so he can do whatever, right? I mean, you won't say that. I mean, if someone creates something, are they allowed to do anything with them? Are parents allowed to do anything with them? I think there are laws against it in most of the Western countries, right? And probably your answer to that would be, hey, but then, Allah is the creator of humans, not their parents, right? And that's only when you start with a certain belief system, right? That's the second point. And the third point, in my opinion, is this doesn't translate to animals, basically. And this we have already said, right? This doesn't translate to animals. There's unnecessary suffering to non-human animals, and they suffer a lot. And there is no, at least tangible evidence that they get anything out of it. There are no theodicies that work from them. They are not going to get anything in hereafter for that, and they're not going to getting anything in the here as well, basically. And so this could only be explained. I mean, not only be explained, but this whole suffering is best explained by a process called evolution, right? Evolution has a history of being ruthless. but that's how it works. That's the mechanism it has evolved through, right?
Yeah.
Or it has gone through.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, a lot, like you said, a lot of the stuff that we've kind of touched upon already, but like Yasir Qadhi also makes the same point that you can't have the positive without the negative or something like that. And this is, again, just foolhardy and shallow, right? Simply because it's the idea that you need starvation to the level that we have or historically have had in order to enjoy cake or pizza. I'm sorry, I've not starved ever in my life. Actually starved. I've never. Have you starved, Philo? Actually starved,
Never,
not fast.
never.
Yeah. Do you enjoy a pizza? Do you enjoy ice cream?
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody,
This is what I'm saying.
everyone.
So
Yeah.
it's stupidity. It's stupidity, right?
Yeah.
The idea that you need that sort of. Remember, we're talking about there is suffering. So that, yeah, philosophically speaking, that could be anything from not eating in 12 hours to not eating in 6 months. I agree, but we don't have to be that shallow and acknowledge. Like an atheist doesn't have to say that every form of suffering has to be right. We can just think, why is there gratuitous these sort of suffering, right? Or suffering that just doesn't have to be there. That's the point. That's what the definition of gratuitous. Things that need not be there in order to obtain the overall good, right? And I'm just giving you an example here. In terms of food satisfaction, I don't need to have food in order to obtain food satisfaction. I don't need to be starving for 6 months. Now, it depends how we explain this point. Now, in order to have the food satisfaction that somebody who's been starving for 6 months, you definitionally have to starve for 6 months in order to feel that sort of food satisfaction. Would I agree, therefore, that there are some forms of goods that are required in order to be achieved, right? That requires some form of suffering, and yeah, that's true. In order to know what pizza tastes like after 6 months. Or forget pizza. In order to know in order to feel the fantastical taste of water after 6 months, I need to starve. I need to be dehydrated for 6 months if I exist. Hypothetically, whatever it is, I think you're going to go without water for 2 weeks. But or food. In order to understand what food tastes like after six months, I need to starve for 6 months. Okay, that's fine. But the point is, that's still gratuitous in the sense that I could still have some happiness or some benefit or some enjoyment of life without needing to have that sort of happiness, right? People don't need to have the goods that they feel after 6 months of starvation in order to have some good, and that's the point. So that's how people like Qadhi. I mean, he's not a philosopher, so I can't discredit him too much, right? But that's what some people who are into philosophy who miss this point about soul building and trying to get to greater good. They don't realize that there are goods possible to be conceived or achieved without having to undergo the tremendous forms of suffering. And that's why it's called gratuitous suffering, right? So the point is, God should if God has an alternative way to bring about goods or happiness, not necessarily of the same kind, but of even different kind, and being able to avoid a form of pain, then he should do that, right? It is expected that I would say he does that.
Yeah,
and the fact
definitely. And when you're saying that the God is all good,
yeah,
I think we
God is all.
Yeah, Martin, go ahead, please.
No, you're right. No, I've got nothing. And furthermore, like, you've got the concept of heaven, and there's no starvation there. There's no
Suffering
poverty.
there. How would you? Yeah.
You don't need to. So they already acknowledge in their own system, in their own theology, that you can have a perfect world of happiness without needing to undergo even a tiny droplet of suffering.
Even an iota of suffering.
Yeah, a tiny droplet
then
of suffering.
Then they say no, but then where is the test? Basically, what the test is all about. That's the test is all about.
Yeah, exactly.
All right,
And
we do have.
sorry, one more thing. In Yasir's imagination, unless you go through war, or unless you're a rape victim, or unless you've suffered an earthquake, or you can't have happiness. That's not right. Of course not. I've never suffered. I've never suffered in an earthquake. There's people out there who's never suffered, who's not been raped. Are you telling me these women are not happy? These women or men are not happy because
I'm
they've not
not
been
happy.
raped?
Yeah, I mean,
Like, what is he
yeah,
talking
that's what I
about?
said. That's what I said. I mean, where is that soul building happening, or what are you gaining with those sufferings? And remember, we are talking about gratuitous suffering, basically, which need not be there. I mean, with those sufferings not being there, there won't be any loss, basically, right, for anybody, right? But that's not the case. I think there are some comments. Let's read the comments and then we shall close the stream, right? Sorry, guys, we have to close the stream early today. Let's take your comment, Bilal. I think there is an opinion that if you deserve punishment in the afterlife, then God would punish you in this world to make the afterlife punishment easier. Maybe that would also work on non-Muslims. Okay. Yeah, not quite sure if you deserve punishment in the afterlife, then God would punish you in this world to make. But then, I think this is not punishment. This is suffering, right? I think the punishment in suffering. I'm not quite sure what your point is with regards to the suffering, Bilal. So maybe you can clarify that. No fatigue, nor disease, nor sorrow, nor sadness, nor hurt, nor distress befalls a Muslim, even if it were the prick he receives from a thorn, but that Allah expiates some of his sins for that. Okay, Madin, did you understand it? Yeah,
I'm
I
just
mean,
reading his
yeah,
views now.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you
So
can
he's trying
say
to say
that,
that
but then,
you're
yeah,
suffering, any suffering that if befalls you, it removes sins or something, right?
yeah. That's what it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
but then, yeah, I mean, why would you make somebody sin first and then give them somebody, you know, it's like, giving what do you call, a cream for someone who's been uh, raped, basically, right? It's sorry, I shouldn't use that word. This is a strict no on YouTube. So somebody who's been forced upon, you give them a cream, right? Because that's assuages, right? Or soothes them. So that's not quite. I mean, is this really required, or is this gratuitous? That's the question we've been asking. I think we'll keep repeating that same question. Is this really required, and what does that give you? What kind of sins, basically, can God not do it with without those uh, sufferings, right? Or is he limited in his imagination? I mean, us humans can come up with better solutions to that, and I'm pretty sure that God can come up with better solutions, right?
Yeah. So
So yeah,
let me just enunciate a very formal principle in order to describe everything that we're saying. From the perspective of omnipotent, omnibenevolent, all-powerful, all-knowledgeable, all-wise God, the hypothesis that such a being exists is either falsified or elevated in its probability of it being true based on the data of the world, depending on how the world looks. Right? If the world looks a particular way that decreases the probability of the hypothesis, then we would think, for example, it's unlikely or more and more unlikely that it exists. If the world looks like it's a world that increases the probability, then we would think, vice versa. As simple as that. And when you think of the concept analytically from the perspective of all powerful and all good, it means he has perfect resources, perfect options, perfect abilities, and therefore multiple alternative opportunities to do the same thing. And all good means that he genuinely wants is in the best interest of mankind. So when you have a situation where somebody's, let's say, being tortured, a Muslim can easily say that torturing is happening for a good end, overall happiness, net happiness, or something, or it would lead to something more, right? But the question is, Therefore, looking at the principles that I've laid down and analyzing God's nature, remember, alternative options, alternative things to do, being able to do it otherwise, then the question then becomes, was this necessary for God? And if it was necessary, is it proportionate to the good end that he wants to bring about? Right? So those two fundamental questions of necessariness and proportionality, right? Like, and I've given this example very quickly. I've given this example in the past before. For example, if you've got a problem with your teeth, you need a root canal, right? Now, if you have a problem with your teeth, and there's the only way to remove this pain, the question whether or not a root canal, which is a form of suffering, to alleviate the pain, would be, is it necessary? One. So if for example, without drilling into that mouth, causing lots of pain and suffering, you can just give medication, like a pill, that will, after 1 hour, evaporate away the pain, then it will be evil for the dentist to undergo a root canal. So is it necessary? No. If that pill didn't exist, it would be necessary. Fine. Okay. Then the second question is the root canal, the pain suffered that you may suffer from the root canal, does that outweigh the pain that you're trying to remove? If the pain that you have in your mouth is mild, yeah, it's a pain but mild, and the root canal is like torture, abject torture for like 7 days, then it might not be proportionate. So these are some questions that you need to think about in the context of God as well. So any so-called gratuitous evil that you see, the evil that you see, like a person has been raped or tortured, you may say God did it. So
Madan, that word, I've been trying to avoid that word as well.
Torture.
Yeah,
Let's say
sorry,
torture.
yeah.
I think torture.
I think we won't be
you can
able
have
to.
to ask the perspective of God. Was it fundamentally necessary in order for that person to be tortured in order to bring about that good end, or a similar end, or a similarly good end, or any other good end that you could have brought about without having to undergo the torture? One. Two, was the torture, the pain suffered from the torture, proportionate to the happiness that you were going to bring about? You know, was it a greater gain that you're actually bringing about? You know, and those are questions, both philosophical and conceptual, of course, and also empirical. We don't see it always in the world. It's very easy to say that it's bringing a greater good. How? I can think of certain situations that there has been a greater good, but there's plenty of situations empirically in the world where we don't see that happening, where we see gratuitous suffering without any good end being brought about, let alone it being proportionate, and let alone it being philosophically necessary.
Yeah. Totally agree. I think we covered it pretty thoroughly. It was a very small clip, by the way, but anybody who wants to see our, if you go to our live streams, I think we have covered this topic in greater detail in other streams as well. So please go and go through and you'll find, I'm pretty sure you'll find at least 2 or 3 live streams or even video clips where we have discussed this topic in great detail. But yeah, I mean, I think I think one of the ones probably that occurs to me. Have we critiqued one of the the Ben Shapiro versus Alex O'Connor? Was that on Problem of Evil or somebody else? Yeah, so I think that's the one. But yeah, anybody who wants to see it, please go ahead and before we leave and close the stream, I would really love to see our number of live viewers increase, not only in our English streams but also on our Hindi Urdu stream. And if you get a chance, send it to your folks and subscribe to Unveiling Faith. That's our English only channel. I would really like to up it as well. And if you want to support us on Patreon, our link is patreon.com/Philo Sapience. Or if you want to support us on Buy Me a Coffee, then you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Philo Sapience. You can also support us, and this is monetarily. If you're able to support us, then please do. Super chats, super stickers, memberships. I don't know what all different things that are possible through YouTube. Please do that and support us. And the biggest support is for you to come, join, comment on chat, and then leave a comment after the stream is over. Tell us what you think about the stream. Tell us what you think about the arguments of our opponents, or our own arguments. If you find a flaw, write that down, ask us a question, or maybe even suggest us to, review another video or a clip that you think should be reviewed, basically because it falls into our domain of reviewing deeply philosophical, philosophy of religion kind of, discussions, basically, or debates, or streams. So with that, Madin, do you have any closing thoughts?
I'm done today.
Okay, all right, awesome. Thank you very much for joining, and see you guys next week, or hopefully sooner. All right, thank you very much. Ciao for now.